Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited to have this guest on the show today because he's going to give us some insights into the customer experience in our new economy. Gabe Alves was born and raised in Perth, Western Australia. His father, a Portuguese immigrant, carpenter, and his mother, a fifth-generation Australian with Scottish and English heritage. Gabe is the second eldest of 5 children with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Growing up in the beautiful bush suburbs east of Perth, his childhood was spent mostly outdoors. Going on adventures, exploring bush tracks, and building rockets were all regular activities. In the late 80s, a family friend was into this new world of personal computers, and he encouraged Gabe's parents to buy a computer for the kids to learn on. It was the wave of the future, the friend said. After much debate, Gabe's parents purchased an IBM-compatible PC for the kids to learn on. It couldn't do anything except load up a flashing cursor. However, Gabe and his brothers would spend hours carefully constructing pictures on the screen by typing characters. This was Gabe's first introduction to the world of computers at the age of 11 and set a stage for a career in IT. After finishing high school, Gabe went to Curtin University and studied computer technology. After 2 years, he was forced to suspend his studies and obtain full-time work due to financial pressures caused by a change in government regulation. He never went back. After the next 20 years, Gabe worked in IT supporting infrastructure. He started on help desk and moved to team lead and ultimately went on to become the IT manager for a multi-million-dollar oil and gas project, managing a team of 35 staff and a budget of $50 million. With a major focus of his career being infrastructure on large construction projects, Gabe had many opportunities to work with cutting-edge technology to solve problems in the field or just making systems more efficient. These efforts saved huge sums of money for the companies he worked for. Over time, this type of work began to foster a desire in him to consider building his own business and use the skills that he had developed through his career to build something of his own. Finally, in early 2017, Gabe accepted a leave package at the end of his project. He now consults helping businesses through digital change and is also the founder of Track My Subs, an online tool that helps businesses and entrepreneurs manage their subscriptions. Gabe still lives in Perth, Western Australia with his wife, Belinda, and has 2 incredible kids, Zachary, who is 9, and Evelyn, who is 11. Gabe Alves, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I sure am, Jim. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
So I think my current passion really is Track My Subs. I spend, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, Track My Subs is in my head. How can I make it better? How can I help my customers? How do I grow that business? And I guess along with that, the consulting that I do around the helping business with digital change, it all kind of fits in together. From a passion perspective, look, I haven't been as passionate about what I do in my entire career up till about now. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and he said he's actually having a bit of a break from work, and he says, "Gabe, I'm just fed up with work. I just hate it." And I said to him, "Well, I actually don't feel like I've got a job. I feel like I get up every day and I absolutely love what I'm doing. It's just absolutely fantastic."
Well, I mean, that's a good place to be, and listening to you say that, I think that also comes with time, right? I think you have to, navigate, you have to go through a journey, you have to, continue to go through the discovery process. And it just doesn't happen overnight. When I start thinking about, that transition and going to where you are now, you're also on the front edge of this. So when I talk about the transformation and the new economy and the customer experience in that, I started looking at the different solutions and jobs and companies that just really didn't exist a couple years ago. And the whole Track My Subs, it's a really interesting concept. Can you just kind of explain that for folks?
Yeah, maybe I can explain where this came from. What's my story on how this started. So it was about 2.5 years ago now. I was working in my wife's business. My wife's got a graphic design business. And we had this awesome idea about how we could automate her website and have people submit, requests for a quote, and we could automate that and create a work order to go through. And we'll sign up to all sorts of plugins with WordPress and all these different applications. And as we're signing up to all these things, I'm hitting a trial here and a trial there and signing up to this subscription all over the place. And this is all ratcheting up. And, you know where this is going, right? So there's one particular one, I'd forgotten about a few, but the one that really stood out for me was Dropbox. So we'd signed up to a business plan for Dropbox. We had a 30-day trial. And then we got busy and I forgot about this trial. And $850 came off the credit card. And I was so frustrated. I was so annoyed about it that I thought there's got to be a better way to do this. And so that was really that trigger point for me. And so straight away I went out on the internet, there's got to be an app that looks after this. And, there were a few out there, but none of them actually did what I wanted it to do. There was a few that sort of connected to bank accounts. And I thought, I don't need it to connect to my bank account. I don't need somebody to trawl through my bank account details to tell me what I'm already spending my money on. I know what I'm spending my money on. I needed a nice tool that I could get organized with. And it didn't exist. So that was just for me. I thought, you know what, I'm going to build this thing. Now, I don't know how to code. I don't know how to program. I've never been able to be a programmer in my life. So, I found a uni student and I said, hey, this is my idea. Do you want to build it with me? And he said, great. And I hired him. And 2 years later, here we are.
So, I mean, for me, I started thinking about the whole customer experience aspects of what you're talking about. And as far as, me being a company like Dropbox, or many of the other companies that have subscription-based models, is that I want you to subscribe. And oftentimes because you might forget about it. But that also doesn't create a good customer experience, because then you start thinking about, how it wasn't fair, how they didn't notify you, but if the company is, not really, customer-centric and customer-focused, they don't want to notify you because that just represents additional revenue. So
that's right. Yeah, it's going to affect your revenue straight up. And it's really interesting you say that, because as I got into this and as the software started developing, I started doing more research and, what's the psychology behind all this? And, I'm starting to build my own app and, how do I help get my customers in? This was all a new world to me. And then I'm starting to discover all these psychological tricks and things that companies use to get you to sign up, to make sure you don't remember. They're not going to send you that reminder. But also there's this amazing book by Nia Eyal called Hooked. And if you haven't read it and you're in software, you've got to read it. And it was an absolute eye-opener to me about sort of the addictive nature of apps and how these things are programmed to tap into the human psyche and make you a customer. And that the fact that you don't remember is seen such a really simple thing, but it's absolutely by design, and there's huge revenues attached to this. It's it totally blew me away that if you do a search for companies that manage subscriptions for companies, there is literally hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into these companies because they make other companies hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's just kind of like fueled my passion for my own app even more, because it's like, who's on the consumer side? Who's looking after the customer? There's all this money pouring in for customers to make greater revenues, more money, but the customer is just sitting there handing over their cash at every single month. And it's just like the default setting for this is take the customer's money. There's no default setting that protects the customer. And you can hear me getting worked up here. Something that, as I've gone with this, it's kind of like, it's something that I've really got into, and really, it's built up.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that. I mean, because I didn't really think about it from that aspect, meaning that, you're really providing a consumer protection solution.
Yeah. It's trying to give. I mean, everything's going is a pay for everything economy. It's like a subscribe to everything economy, I should say. And humans aren't built this way. We're used to buying something and then never have to spend money on it again. I kind of think of something like an exercise bike. Everyone has these great ideas. I'm going to buy this exercise bike and I'm going to do this exercise for months. And so you buy the exercise bike, you might get on it for the first 3 weeks. And if you don't do the training for the next month or so, you go, that's okay. If I've got the bike there, I'll get back onto it next week, or I'll do it the week after. When you buy something, there's not an additional sort of hit to your back pocket. When you subscribe to something, that lack of inaction costs you money. And so we're wired to buy things and then own them, not pay for them and continue using them. And so we just don't think about it. And so that's naturally, and everyone's tapping into that because it's a huge source of revenue.
Well, it is, and it's interesting. As you were talking, I started thinking about two particular, prime examples of what you're meaning as far as the whole neuroscience and psychology of all this is that, at least here in the States, fast food companies never used to take credit cards, because they didn't want to have the transaction fees. And they're like, no, it's going to eat our profits. But what they found is that people bought like 20% more product. And so it was not just a situation where it was an even cut. It was like they started making more money. So go ahead, pay the transaction fee because people are buying more product. And then the other thing is, I just even had this conversation with my wife the other day where there's a particular place that I go where, we get some of our vitamins and stuff like that. And they've been continually trying to get to join their club. And I'm like, I don't want to be part of your club. And they're like, oh, you get all these discounts and this, that, and the other, and we'll send you this free product. And I'm like, first of all, I don't have the time to sort through all of your products. I don't want to try all these products. And I don't want to get stuck, getting all of your, electronic, transactions and information. And I don't want to lose track of this darn, membership thing that I'm going to have to pay for again and won't get full leverage out of. I don't want your club. And so I'm trying to, for me, I'm more conscious of this whole thing and how they try to draw you in. But gosh, the pressure is just overwhelming.
Oh, and there's one that happens all the time, and it's often in pay TV. You'll sign up to a pay TV subscription, and they'll say, "Do you want the sports package?" And you go, "No, look, I don't want the sports package." Then they'll say, "Well, how about you have the sports package for free for 3 months?" And you go, "Well, that sounds good." So you go, "Yeah, give me that sports package for free," and you take it on. 3 months, you're guaranteed to forget about it. But in 3 months, it stops being free and it starts coming off. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, you'll pay for that at least 3 or 4 months probably before you realize, oh, hang on a minute, I'm paying for this sports package that I didn't even want to start with, but somehow it's on my bill.
It's amazing how this works. Okay, so I also had the opportunity. You had mentioned it a moment ago, or maybe you didn't, but I at least researched and found that you're actually a coach for organizations going through digital transformation, which is just huge right now. And so we talked before we actually got on the show about how this is primarily you're coaching and working with small to medium sized enterprises, but digital transformation is a problem for everybody. The keeping up with the pace of change and the consumer expectations is just. You're talking about velocity and agility and all of those things. Companies are struggling, but you're part of a digital champions club, primarily in your part of the world. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing to help companies do that transformation and hopefully, of course, be more customer-centric and not do some of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Digital Champions Club, it actually was founded by a speaker called Simon Waller, and he used to work for Rio Tinto, one of the major mining companies in the world. And he used to do this sort of risk analysis and digital transformation stuff within the large organizations, similar to some of the stuff that I had done. He came and spoke at a organization that I was with and about this digital change and this sort of digital champions methodology that he talks about. And it really resonated with me. So I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, Simon, I really love your stuff. Can we catch up for a coffee next time you're in town?" And we did. And he said, "Well, this is my program." And he invited me to join it and be a coach here on the west coast of Australia. And what I really loved about it is when I first started to try and consult and try and help businesses, I had a real problem with, I felt I was a fraud. So I'd go in and someone would have a problem and we've got this process and we need to automate it. We need to get an application that's going to solve our problem. And I'll go in there and help them with it from a perspective of, yep, I think this is going to help you, and you do a bit of analysis for them and you give them a report. And I knew that when I gave them that report, I had a whole bunch of recommendations, but I knew the moment I walked away, they weren't going to do anything with it. They just didn't have the skills. They didn't have those resources in-house that they could actually go and execute it. And so what I really liked about this program was that it's not about us as coaches delivering it. So we ask for every company who signs up to our program, they provide 2 people. And we typically ask for a sort of a business-oriented person and a technical person. So they might be from the IT department. And then we also ask for an executive sponsor. And so it's really important how we grab those 3 people. The executive sponsor is there to make sure that it's got the support of the business. We've got a business person so that when, things can be looked at from a business perspective and understood that, hey, there's a business case here. This isn't just some tech thing that we want to install. there's a business driver for it. And then, of course, you have a tech person who can help with the implementation and all the nuts and bolts of it. And so we have a real solid process of, okay, we think we've got some problems. So we find those problems, and then it's working through and framing them up and understanding what is the process and what is that process costing the business as it stands. So we don't even look for solutions. The solution's kind of like way down the track. And it's like, okay, well, let's find what is this worth? And hang on a minute, is it even worth solving? I mean, there's so many times you go, oh, look, there's a brand new app out there. Let's go install it in our business. Let's get going. But you don't know what it's solving. You don't know what it's worth. You go, well, it's only, $10 per user or something like that. But you haven't quantified what it is that's going to bring back for your business. So we sort of bring that into it so that when you've understood your problem, you go, okay, look, this problem is costing us $100,000 a year in lost time. You go, well, if we spent $10,000 finding a solution, we're going to get a 10-to-1 return on our money. And then all of a sudden you've got this business case that stacks up, and we get these guys to walk through this process, present it to their management and say, there's our business case for what we're going to do. And all of a sudden you've got buy-in, and that helps with the whole change process. And, as part of this, we get them to engage other staff members, the people involved in the problem. So when this change happens, it's not also where you see so often where a new application gets rolled out. Hey, everybody, we're using this. And then no one wants to use it.
I think you bring up a really interesting point because, I was just having this conversation the other day when it talks about human motivators. And that, okay, so an organization is just a group of humans, but, we can sit there and look at the whole aspirational side all day long. Hey, we could do this better. Hey, we could, increase our profits. Hey, we could, all of those are great. However, if we don't understand the dark side of it, which is really what motivates most of us, and that's the fear component. We're most of us don't want to continue to endure pain. That's just not the way that we're built. It's the whole, fight or flee thing, right? So until people can really start understanding the dark side of a particular issue, it's kind of hard to get them to, really understand, what the impact of not doing something is, or continuing to do things the way that they've been doing. So even when we started talking about those track my subs and the neuroscience and the psychology of all of this, you did the same thing or are doing the same thing as a coach by having people understand their pain problem.
Absolutely. And by getting them to actually draw out their process and getting the people who do it, you're actually drawing attention to the pain. And it's one of the things that, Simon and I have talked about is that's part of the process. We can't lead them and say, here's the solution. We actually got to make them feel the pain and go, and you draw it out on the board as they go through their process, and they go, well, this is actually pretty bad. Like this is hurting us. And they have to go through that because then they recognize what the value is going to be. And it's like, well, for me, I didn't see a problem with paying subscriptions until it really hurt me. And then it's like, I've got to fix this thing. Now I recognize this pain. It's loud enough, No,
and here's the thing too, is that us talking about this and talking about the human change and the transformation process, some people may say, well, gosh, you're manipulating people. Now, here, manipulation is a problem when you're actually trying to get them to do something that will actually hurt them in the long run. That's not what you're doing here. What you're needing to do is influence them so that they will actually make a movement. And because ultimately what's on the other side of this hump is something that is fabulous and will actually give them benefit and value.
Yeah, and it's this is such a two-sided thing, right? And it's all about what is the motivation for it? What's the drive that you're trying to achieve here? Is it for good or for evil? If you know what I mean, right? It's what's the purpose here? And if you've got good purposes, this comes to the debate of this whole addictive apps as well. An app that is totally designed to be addictive, that's good for you. Like maybe it's a fitness app, or maybe it's something to do with meditation, or something that brings you health benefits. Well, there's a real benefit to that, being addicted, because it's going to help the person. That's the real kind of value there. But if it's, I keep coming back to Facebook and the Facebook slot machine, I call it, the continuous scroll. It's just, you're scrolling, looking for that dopamine hit. And there's something of interest that goes in your head and you go, wow, quick, roll again. I want another one, right? And I think, where's the value in that other than addicting people for the sake of addiction and staying on an app, right?
That's very true. Well, okay, so all of this that we're talking about here, without a doubt, positive side, negative side, change, it's just riddled and full of emotion. And one of the things that we like to look at on the show in order to give us, hopefully, a positive hit of emotion are quotes. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
Yeah. The quote that I had was an old boss of mine. He told me, and I think I was just unloading to him at the time, going, this is really hard. And he said to me, he goes, Gabe, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it just stuck with me. And it's like, it's so true. It's really easy to take the easy path. But if you're finding things are hard, well, that's good, because you're taking that, the road less traveled, so to speak. And that's the path to getting, the better outcome and the greater satisfaction. So that one's really stuck with me. Yeah. If it was easy, well, then, everyone would be doing it.
And, that's one of those simple quotes. And I even find myself saying that a lot, especially to my kids. It is so true. I mean, it's just like one of those moments when you say it, and then also when you feel it yourself. So, I mean, you're talking also about, going through your background and how you've come and the path and the pivots and all of those things that you've done to get to where you are with, being a coach and helping organizations through transformation and Track My Subs. I know there's a lot of humps that you had to get over. Yep. Is there a hump where you've gotten over where we can actually learn something? Can you share that story?
Yeah. Hopefully we've got enough time here. I'll go through it as quickly as I can. It's so when I was working for Bechtel on this oil and gas the gas project, I had the opportunity to do something different to the way we'd done it. So it was a construction job, and it was a very remote site. And to sort of give you an idea of scale, we had about 5,000 construction workers. And we had to move those construction workers from a camp where they were all resided. And every morning we had to get them on a bus, 70 odd buses actually, and move them to the job site, which was about 12 kilometres away. Now, the typical way of managing the workforce would be using turnstiles. You got a badge and you walk up to the turnstile and you hit the turnstile and it lets you through. Now, the problem with this, if you can imagine moving 5,000 people at the beginning of the day on buses, you get them off, then you swipe the badge and 5,000 people have to go through banks and banks of turnstiles. And then the job site itself was 2 kilometres long. So no one could walk to their job. They had to get back on the buses again. So the logistics of that, hours to the beginning and the end of every day. And so when this job came across over to me to say, okay, Gabe, your team needs to go and get these turnstiles installed, get all the electronics and all the things done, I said, there's got to be a better way. And the thing that came to mind, I do a bit of running. I used to do a lot of triathlon. And you go to these events and you get given a bib. And then you run over the mats at the beginning of the race and at the end of the mats. At the end of the race, you run over the mats too. And your time pops up and you get an email later on that says, your race was this long. I'm like, surely there's got to be something out there that we could do to replace this system. So that's what we did. And I say it, just roll it off the tongue like that. That's what we did. But, anyone who knows Bechtel, they're an old company. They're a 110, 120-year-old company. They have their ways of doing things. And, their construction management, everything else, this isn't something that changes easily, right? I think about this presentation that I put together, and I must have presented it 10, 15 times. I'd present it to one or two people, and they'd say, oh, that's great, Gabe. I really like this. I want you to go and present it to somebody else. So I present it to them. And they'll go, that's really good. I want you to go and present it to someone else. And this went on literally for weeks and weeks. We were presenting it over and over again. And every time I did it, it would tweak a little bit, adjust it a little bit. And you could see that there's going to be a few people who were detractors. There's a few people who said, nah, this is never going to work. It's not the way we do it. I'm not interested. And you could tell that they just didn't want to have to do the work to do something different. They knew how to do their job, and this was going to be a change. And so it was really interesting to try and get this over the line, that it was about convincing and selling the story that it was good for the project, it was good for the company, and that the people who were the detractors, essentially I targeted on their bosses. And I said, right, I need to convince their bosses, and then they will tell these guys to bring them into line. And essentially that's what happened. So it was, it ended up being a really great success. But there's one thing that I want to really sort of mention about too. So after spending about $2.5 million, getting the system all set up, we're ready to implement, and I had a shipment of tags. These are these electronic tags that every employee was going to wear that will enable them to be detected when they move on and off the site. And I got a phone call from Perth. So this is actually about 1,200 kilometres away, the job site. And I got a phone call from Perth, and all these tags, 3,000 of them, had missed the truck. They weren't going to be on the truck, so we weren't going to be able to get them to the site on time. And I thought, that's okay. We'll just put them on the next plane. So because of the remoteness of this site, all the workforce would fly in and out of aircraft. It was just too far to drive in. It was so every employee would travel to and from work on an aircraft. So all these badges went to the airport, and then I get a phone call from the airport saying, Gabe, these devices can't fly. And I remember, I can picture in my head exactly where I was sitting, where I was on the site, and it was like my whole world just collapsed. And I just went, I've just spent months and months and months and $2.5 million and all this time convincing this project and this company that this is the new way to go. I'm like, my job's over. That's it. I'm done. I'm totally, that's it. And I had forgotten that each of these devices was a radio transmitter. And of course, you can't have radio transmitters on aircraft. And it also had a lithium battery. And they had these rules against batteries. And I just thought, that's it. My job's done. So after panicking for a minute, I thought, well, I've got to at least try. And so I called the guy who was in charge of our aircraft contract. And he used to manage our aircraft, contract aircraft. And I said, Rocky, I've got a problem. This is what it is. Told him the situation. And he goes, Gabe, don't worry about it. Just leave it with me. I'll call you back in a couple of hours. 4 hours later, he had written approval from the airline that this device had received an exemption and it was allowed to fly. So the project was back on. And it was that moment that I realized that my relationship with Rocky, the guy who enabled this, I had been building that relationship for about 3 years. I'd known the guy and I'd never required anything from him. I just, it was one of those things that I always took the time for him. I always got to know him. He was, there. But when I needed to call in that favor, he could not help me fast enough. And that's when the moment for me was just relationships are everything. You cannot do things on your own. And if you think you do, you're going to come to a point where you're going to need somebody's help. And if you haven't got that relationship network, that friend or whoever it is to call on, you're just going to fall in a hole. And that whole project would have died right then because there wouldn't have been anyone else but the right person I had the relationship with. And it turned out to be quite simple. But if he wasn't on board, that would not have happened. There's no one else who would have made the effort to get that done.
That's a really good lesson for me to hear, and I'm sure everybody else too, is that, sometimes just taking that moment to, give and acknowledge and all of that can pay off maybe 5-10 years down the road. But you can't ultimately invest, your time and effort and into people, seeking the gain. You just do it out of just your normal self.
Yeah. And I don't think it's got to come from a place of natural communication. If you go out there trying to build these networks intentionally, it's going to feel fake. It's not going to be real. It's not going to happen. People will see straight through it. But it's more about taking the time when an opportunity presents itself just to talk to someone, get to know them. And sometimes that's all it is. It's just, if you're passing someone in the corridor or you're meeting someone, just take a few moments, and it might just be a minute or two to say, hi, how's it going? How was your weekend? And just have that friendliness rather than going, I'm too busy, I've got to keep going.
Yeah, put down the cell phone, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I know, we talked about the coaching. We talked about, and I know you got family. I mean, that's important to you. You've got a lot of things going on. But if you were to say you had one goal, what would it be?
Look, Track My Subs is it for me at the moment. That is my passion. It's my kind of my hobby. As I said before, it's the thing I wake up thinking about, and how do I just get this into the hands of as many people as I can. It's one of those things that, like anything, you always doubt yourself. Have I done the right thing? Is this going to be successful? What does success look like? All these kinds of things. But then every day I'm getting somebody, he comes back to me, he sends me a note, messages me through our support system and says, this just saved me some money, or, you know what? This thing's amazing. And when I first looked at it, I thought, is it really a problem? And as soon as I start getting into it, I'm like, this is like I love it. And when I hear those things, it's just like, you know what? It's good. I'm kind of getting that message out there. I'm helping people. And, the world's not going to change. We're going to go down this place. No one's going to own anything. It just doesn't make sense to own anything, really. And if we just don't have the tools, we're going to be we're going to be destitute because we're going to be paying a lot of money on stuff we don't need.
Well, the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Need a powerful and entertaining way to ignite your next conference, retreat, or team building session? My keynotes don't include magic, but they do have the power to help your attendees take a leap forward by putting emotional intelligence into their employee engagement, and customer-centric leadership practices. So bring the infotainment creativity of the Fast Leader Show to your next event, and I'll help your attendees get over the hump now. Go to beyondmorale.com/speaking to learn more. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Gabe, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust, yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Gabe Alves, are you ready to hoe down?
I sure am. Go ahead.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I think doing the tough things. I think I still struggle with doing the tough things. If I could, sometimes I win, sometimes I don't, but if I could get better at just when the tough things come up, just hitting them head on, I think I'd do a lot better.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
The best leadership advice was, Gabe, you can no longer do anything. You need to be able to build and develop the trust in your team and get them to do it, because if you have to jump in and do it yourself, you're never going to be a success.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Empathy. 100% empathy. Just taking the moment to think about the other person's circumstance, and before you open your mouth, it goes an absolute huge way.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? And it can be from any genre.
The Digital Champion by Simon Waller. That's just got the framework for doing digital change in your business like I've never seen.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Gabe Alves. Okay, Gabe, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
The ability to speak to a group of people. The one thing that I wish I had solved many, many years ago was the ability to public speak, and the amount of doors that open up when you can communicate well and talk to a group is absolutely phenomenal. Unfortunately, I only solved my problem about 5 years ago by a lot of pain and suffering, but it's something I just wish I'd done when I was 10 years old.
Gabe, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
The best way is probably to connect to me through LinkedIn, or they can go to the Track My Subs webpage and go through to support, and I'll be able to get you through there as well.
Gabe Alves, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.